Marcus Webb looked at her and did what he'd always done. "Ma'am, this seat is reserved for the elite. Not for the slow, the weak, the small, the dark-skinned, the timid, the amateurs, the invisible." He dismissed her, his voice echoing through the cabin with a confidence he never earned. He let the words land like they were harmless. That pattern had always felt safe, especially with people he assumed didn't matter. He thought no one important was listening. She documented everything. What Marcus didn't know, she wasn't just cabin staff. She wasn't junior. She wasn't powerless. She was the one who decided who flies, and who never does again. In 30 minutes, that single moment of public humiliation, one fatal misread, one discriminatory habit, would strip him of his certification, ground him permanently, and confine him to the shelves while others took the sky. What happens when the person you humiliate holds your career in their hands? You're about to find out. While Marcus was questioning her credentials, Simone was doing something he'd missed, finding an actual safety issue. She finished the walk-around in 12 minutes. Efficient. Methodical. The kind of precision that comes from 4,000 hours, not 400. And at the right main landing gear, she stopped. Crouched down. Checked the pressure gauge twice. 8 psi low. Not catastrophic. Not grounding the aircraft. But enough to matter. Enough that it should have been caught during the previous night's post-flight inspection. Enough that Marcus should have noticed it 30 minutes ago when he did his own walk-around. Simone walked over to the ground crew supervisor. "Right main gear is 8 psi under spec. Can we get that corrected before departure?" The supervisor nodded. Radioed maintenance. Marcus, standing near the fuel truck, overheard. His jaw tightened. She'd found something. Something real. Something he'd missed. Here's what Marcus should have done: say thank you. Here's what his ego did instead: double down. Inside the cockpit, the tension was thick enough to cut with a chart ruler. Marcus settled into the left seat, his seat, and started running the pre-flight checklist. Simone took the right seat without a word. Professional. Calm. Like nothing had happened on the tarmac. That calm infuriated him. They reached the fuel calculation section. Marcus ran the numbers using the old method, the one he'd used for 2 decades. Fuel required, 4,800 pounds. Simone glanced at his figures. Paused. "Captain, I'm showing 4,200 pounds with the updated density-altitude formula. You might want to recheck." Marcus didn't look at her. "I've been calculating fuel since before you had a driver's license." "I'm sure you have," Simone said evenly. "But the formula changed in the last software update. If we use the old calculation at this altitude and temperature, we're carrying 600 pounds of unnecessary fuel. That's weight we don't need." Marcus ran the numbers again. Silently. In his head. She was right. The math was right. He knew it. But admitting it felt like handing her a victory. Felt like proving her point. Felt like losing. So instead of saying "good catch," Marcus said the words that would end him. "I don't need a diversity checkbox teaching me math." The cockpit went silent. Simone's hand, reaching for the switch panel, froze. Just for a second. Then she continued. Flipped the fuel pump switch. Made a note on her tablet. Said nothing. But in the cabin, 15 feet behind them, something else happened. A woman in a business suit, corporate passenger, early boarding, coffee in hand, heard every word through the open cockpit door. Her name was Dr. Patricia Wynn. VP of Human Resources for a Fortune 500 company. Employment law specialist. 15 years investigating workplace discrimination cases. And her professional instinct kicked in immediately. She reached into her bag. Pulled out her phone. Opened the voice memo app. Hit record. Placed the phone on the armrest, microphone facing the cockpit. Not for drama. Not for confrontation. Just documentation. The way an HR executive documents risk. Marcus had no idea he was being recorded. He had no idea that his diversity checkbox comment was now timestamped audio evidence. He had no idea that the woman in seat 2A could testify in federal court. 28 years of flying. Spotless safety record. Respected by peers. And in that moment, Marcus chose his ego over his career. He just didn't know it yet. Comment below if you've ever worked with someone whose ego was bigger than their skill. Because Marcus is about to learn that respect isn't about years, it's about competence. Marcus had a choice. Walk it back. Apologize. Fly the route. He didn't. He reached for the radio. Keyed the mic. And said the words that would end everything. Dispatch, this is Captain Webb. I'm refusing to fly with this first officer. Send a replacement. Static crackled. Then the dispatcher's voice came through, confused, cautious, like she was trying to make sure she'd heard correctly. Captain Webb. She's type-rated on this aircraft. ATP certified. Are you sure about this? I need a documented reason for the flight log. Marcus didn't hesitate. She's unqualified. That's my professional assessment. Log it. What Marcus heard, compliance. A dispatcher doing what she was told. What actually happened, documentation. A permanent record. A legal trail. A timestamp. Here's what Marcus forgot, or maybe never bothered to learn. Every pilot refusal triggers automatic owner notification. It's company policy. Written in the operations manual. Page 47. Marcus had signed the acknowledgement 3 years ago when he joined Archer Aviation. He just never thought he'd be the subject of one. The dispatcher's voice came back, hesitant now. Understood, Captain. I'll notify the owner per protocol. Marcus waved a hand dismissively, like he was swatting away a fly. Fine. Whatever. Just get me someone competent. The owner. He said it so casually. Like he was talking about some distant administrator sitting in a corporate office 2 states away. Someone who'd glance at a report, shrug, and move on. He had no idea the owner was sitting 15 feet behind him. In the right seat. Listening to every word. Watching him destroy himself in real time. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Because this isn't a gotcha moment. This isn't some viral justice story where the villain gets owned in 5 minutes and everyone claps. This is a domino chain. Each choice Marcus makes creates a problem he can't solve. Each problem forces another choice. Each choice makes the hole deeper. And the worst part? He doesn't even know he's digging yet. Hit subscribe right now, because what happens next isn't just about Marcus. It's about every time you've watched someone with power make assumptions about someone without it. And if you stay to the end, you'll see exactly what those assumptions cost. Not in drama. In documentation. In witnesses. In consequences that don't care about your intentions. Share this with someone who needs to see what happens when arrogance meets a paper trail. Because Marcus just created his own evidence file. And he signed it himself. The woman who'd been recording everything finally spoke. And when she did, Marcus's world started tilting. She stepped forward from the cabin, business suit, calm expression, the kind of professional composure that comes from sitting across tables where people's careers end. Captain, I'm uncomfortable flying with a crew in conflict. As a paying client, I need clarification on this safety concern. Her voice wasn't hostile. It was worse. It was measured. The tone of someone building a case. Marcus turned, forcing his best customer service smile. The one he'd used 1,000 times with difficult passengers. Ma'am, I assure you, this is purely a safety decision. The first officer lacks the necessary experience for this route. And that's when Simone spoke. Not loud. Not angry. Just factual. Captain, I have 4,200 hours. Type rated on this aircraft for 18 months. ATP license current. 600 hours on this exact route. You haven't asked me a single qualification question. The passenger's eyebrow lifted. Just slightly. She turned back to Marcus. Captain Webb, what specifically disqualifies her? 5 seconds. That's how long Marcus stood there, mouth open, unable to articulate a single technical reason. Not weather minimums. Not route familiarity. Not systems knowledge. Just silence. 5 seconds that confirmed what everyone in that aircraft already knew. This wasn't about safety. This was about something else. Something Marcus couldn't say out loud without ending himself. The passenger's expression didn't change. But her voice dropped into a register Marcus recognized, the voice lawyers use when they're documenting for court. I work in employment law, Captain. VP of Human Resources. And I'm going to need to report this conversation to your company. For liability purposes. She pulled a business card from her pocket. Handed it to Simone. Not to Marcus. If you need a witness statement, I'll provide one. Marcus had 2 witnesses now. One recording every word on her phone. One legally trained to testify in federal discrimination cases. And he still thought he could talk his way out of it. Still thought authority meant he got the last word. Still thought the uniform gave him immunity. Hit that like button if you've ever watched someone talk themselves into unemployment. Because Marcus isn't done digging yet. In fact, he's about to make a phone call that turns this from a career problem into a family crisis. And when his wife hears what he's risking, and why he's risking it, the consequences stop being professional. They become personal. Stay with this. Because the next domino? It doesn't fall in the cockpit. It falls at home. While Marcus was trying to protect his pride on the tarmac, he was about to learn that pride doesn't pay mortgages. He stepped away from the aircraft. Pulled out his phone. Dialed home. His wife answered on the second ring. Honey, there's a situation. They're trying to force me to fly with someone unqualified. I might lose today's pay. Silence on the other end. Then Angela's voice came through, tired, sharp, the voice of someone who's heard this before. Marcus. We can't afford that. I know, but the mortgage is due in 4 days. We're already 2 weeks late on the car payment. From your last suspension. 6 months earlier, Marcus had been suspended for 3 days. Insubordination. Arguing with a tower controller over a routing instruction. He'd come home and told Angela it was administrative leave. Paid time off while they updated systems. She'd believed him. Until the paycheck came up short. Until she asked questions. Until he admitted, quietly, that he'd been written up. She hadn't forgotten. Angela's voice cracked now, frustration bleeding through. What is it this time, Marcus? What could possibly be worth losing another day's pay? Marcus opened his mouth. Closed it. He couldn't say it. He couldn't tell her it was about a black woman in the cockpit. That he'd refused to fly because she didn't look like what he thought a first officer should look like. Because Angela is black. Their daughter is black. So instead, he lied. It's a safety issue. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand. The same words he'd been using on Simone. The same dismissive tone. The same condescension. He was doing it to his own wife now. The pattern was everywhere. He just couldn't see it. Angela exhaled slowly. The kind of breath that means 1,000 things you're not saying out loud. Fine. Do what you think is right. But if we lose this house, Marcus, that's on you. She hung up. Marcus stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. And in that moment, something shifted. Not growth. Not realization. Just calculation. He couldn't afford to lose this job. Couldn't afford another suspension. couldn't afford Angela's disappointment turning into something harder. So he made a decision. Swallow the pride. Apologize. Make it go away. Fly the route. Get paid. Move on. He thought apologizing would fix it. He didn't realize that the dispatcher had already logged everything. That the owner had already been notified. That the HR executive had already started her recording. And in aviation, logged incidents don't disappear. They escalate. Marcus walked back toward the aircraft, rehearsing his apology in his head. Trying to find the words that would sound sincere without admitting he was wrong. He had no idea that his apology was about to make everything worse. Because when you apologize for the wrong reasons, people hear it. And when there are witnesses watching, they document it. Comment consequences if you've ever watched someone prioritize ego over rent money. Because what happens next shows exactly why that's a catastrophic choice. Marcus is about to apologize. And that apology? It's going to create a federal crime. Marcus walked back to the aircraft thinking an apology would reset everything. A few words. A handshake. Professional courtesy. They'd fly the route, get paid, and never speak of this again. Instead, it triggered the one thing he couldn't undo, a paper trail. He climbed the stairs. Stepped into the cabin. Simone was in the cockpit, running through the pre-start checklist alone. Professional. Unbothered. Marcus cleared his throat. Look, maybe I was hasty. Let's just get this flight done. Professionalism, right? He tried to make it sound magnanimous. Like he was doing her a favor. Like he was the bigger person. Simone didn't even turn around. Her voice came back calm, measured, exactly the tone you'd use to read a weather report. Captain, the dispatcher already logged your refusal. The owner's been notified per protocol. I can't override that. Marcus's stomach dropped. What owner? Simone turned now, clipboard in hand, eyes steady. Archer Aviation has mandatory reporting procedures. All pilot refusals are escalated. It's policy. Marcus's brain scrambled. He hadn't thought about policy. Hadn't thought about escalation. He just assumed this was between him and her. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Look, just delete the log. We both want to fly. No harm, no foul. Delete the log. He just asked her to falsify company records. In front of the HR executive. Who was still recording. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was damning. Simone's expression didn't change. But her voice dropped half an octave. Cold. Factual. Captain, that would be falsifying safety documentation. That's a federal violation. She didn't say it like a threat. She said it like she was reading him his rights. Behind Marcus, the passenger, Dr. Wynne, pulled out her phone again. Opened her notes app. Typed. 10:08 a.m. Pilot requested deletion of logged incident. Verbatim, delete the log. No harm, no foul. Witnessed by first officer and myself. She timestamped it. Marcus saw her do it. Saw the screen. Saw her thumbs moving. Saw the timestamp update. And in that moment, the weight of what he'd just done hit him like turbulence at 15,000 feet. 10 minutes ago, Marcus had one problem, a discrimination complaint. Now he had two, discrimination and attempted records falsification. His apology hadn't fixed anything. It had created evidence. The HR executive looked up from her phone, met Marcus's eyes, and said nothing. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any accusation. Because she wasn't just a witness anymore. She was a liability expert. And Marcus had just handed her a textbook case of workplace misconduct escalating into federal violations. Simone turned back to her checklist. Voice professional. Almost kind. Captain, I suggest you step off the aircraft. This flight isn't departing with you as pilot in command. Marcus's hands were shaking now. You can't do that. I'm not doing anything, Captain. The protocol is. You triggered it when you called dispatch. I'm just following procedure. Marcus wanted to argue. Wanted to pull rank. Wanted to remind her that he had 28 years and she had what, maybe 5? But the words wouldn't come. Because somewhere, in the back of his mind, a voice was screaming that he'd crossed a line he didn't even know existed. And there was no walking it back. Subscribe if you want to see how many times someone can make the wrong choice in 30 minutes. Because Marcus just turned one mistake into 2 federal violations. And he still doesn't know who he's talking to. That reveal? It's coming. But first, Marcus is about to make a call that will cost him the one thing he thought he could never lose. His union protection. Stay with this. The call that would change everything came at 6:47 a.m. Marcus heard it ring. Simone's phone. A simple chime. He didn't know it was his boss calling his boss to fire him. Simone pulled the phone from her flight bag. Glanced at the screen. Answered without hesitation. Her voice shifted, still professional, but clipped now. The tone of someone reporting to authority. Yes, I'm aware. Pause. No, I'm following protocol exactly. Another pause. Marcus watched her face. Calm. No emotion. Just focus. I have documentation. Timestamps. Witness statements. One more pause. I'll handle it per our discussion. Yes. Understood. She hung up. Marcus's chest tightened. Who was that? Simone slipped the phone back into her bag, didn't look at him. Company legal. They want a full incident report. Should have it filed within the hour. Company legal. For a crew disagreement. That felt excessive. Marcus had been flying for 28 years. He'd seen disputes. Personality clashes. Captains and first officers who couldn't stand each other but still flew together because that's the job. None of those ever involved company legal. He stepped out of the cockpit. Pulled out his phone. Dialed dispatch. The line clicked. Dispatch, this is Captain Webb. Quick question, who exactly is the owner of this operation? I've been flying for you guys for 3 years, never actually met them. The dispatcher's voice came back, hesitant now, like she was choosing her words carefully. Archer Aviation LLC. It's a private holding company. If you want details, check the tail registration placard. It's all listed there. Thanks. Marcus hung up. He walked back to the aircraft. Climbed the stairs. Found the metal registration placard riveted to the interior bulkhead near the cockpit door. Aircraft registration. Owner, S. Archer. Principal, Archer Aviation LLC. Base of operations, same city. Marcus stared at it. S. Archer. Could be anyone. Steve. Samuel. Susan. Maybe Scott. Didn't matter. Whoever they were, they'd side with the captain. They always did. Pilots were expensive to replace. Captains with clean records, even more so. Some first officer with an attitude problem? Expendable. Marcus felt his confidence return. This would blow over. The clues were right there. The dispatcher's nervous tone when he'd asked about the owner. The ground crew exchanging glances when he'd made that in turn comment. Simone's complete, unshakable calm, not the defensive posture of someone worried about getting fired, but the steady presence of someone who couldn't be fired. The phone call to company legal that she took without stepping away. Without lowering her voice. Like she wasn't worried about him overhearing. The tablet. The notes. The timestamps. Marcus had all the pieces. He just couldn't see the picture they made. Because in his mind, the story was simple. Arrogant first officer. Veteran captain. Owner sides with experience. Standard. Predictable. Safe. What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't imagine, was that the person he'd insulted, dismissed, and asked to commit a federal crime wasn't just a first officer. She was the person who signed his paychecks. And she'd been taking notes the entire time. Tag someone who's ever been the last person to figure out what everyone else already knows. Because Marcus is about to have the worst realization of his life. And it's not going to come from Simone. It's going to come from his union. The people he thought would protect him? They're about to hang up on him. Marcus made the call every pilot makes when they think they're right and the world is wrong. He called his union rep. And learned that sometimes, being right doesn't matter if you did it wrong. The phone rang twice. Pilots Union, this is Dave. Dave Kellerman. 20-year veteran. Former 737 captain. Marcus had met him at 3 different grievance hearings. Good guy. Fair. The kind of rep who fought for pilots. Dave, it's Marcus Webb. I need help. There's a situation. A pause. Then Dave's voice came back, cautious now. Marcus. Yeah. I heard. Dispatch called me 10 minutes ago. Walk me through it. What safety deficiency did you document? Marcus's confidence flickered. I didn't document anything yet. I told dispatch she was unqualified. Okay. Did you review her credentials? Logbook? Training records? No, but I could tell. Dave cut him off. Did you file a formal safety of flight report? No, I just verbally refused. A heavy sigh came through the line. The kind of sigh that means you're on your own. Marcus. You made a personnel complaint, not a safety complaint. I can't defend that. Especially if there's any hint this was discriminatory. Marcus's hand tightened around the phone. It wasn't discriminatory. Dave's voice stayed level. Professional. But there was no warmth in it anymore. Then what was it? Silence. Marcus opened his mouth. Closed it. What could he say? That she didn't look like a pilot? That he didn't trust her because she was young? That something about her just felt wrong? None of those things sounded right out loud. Dave filled the silence. Marcus, here's the problem. You refused to fly. You didn't cite a technical reason. You didn't review her qualifications. And now I'm hearing you asked her to delete the incident log. Marcus's blood went cold. How did you? Dispatch copied me on the escalation report. It's already in the system. Owner's been notified. HR witness on board. Audio recording. Dave paused. This isn't a grievance I can file, Marcus. This is a liability case. And the union doesn't defend liability. We defend safety culture violations. You didn't violate safety culture. You violated employment law. Marcus felt the ground shifting under him. Dave, I've been paying dues for 28 years. I helped Jerry Franklin through his suspension. I helped Lisa Ortiz fight her wrongful termination. I've been there for people. You can't just. I'm not abandoning you, Marcus. I'm telling you I can't help you. There's a difference. Dave's voice softened just slightly. Almost sympathetic. If you'd filed a safety report, if you'd documented concerns, if you'd followed procedure, I'd be on a plane right now to back you up. But you didn't. You made assumptions. You refused to fly based on. What? A feeling? Another pause. And then you asked her to falsify records. That's not a union issue. That's a federal issue. Marcus's throat tightened. So what am I supposed to do? Dave exhaled. Get a lawyer. A good one. Employment law specialist. And whatever you do, don't talk to anyone else without counsel. Not the company. Not the FAA. Nobody. A beat? And Marcus? Off the record? Yeah? If this goes where I think it's going. Don't use my name as a reference. Click. Marcus stood there, phone pressed to his ear, listening to the dial tone. 28 years in the union. Paid his dues every month. Never missed a payment. Helped other pilots through grievances. Showed up to solidarity events. Wore the union pin on his uniform. And when he needed them, they hung up. Because everyone knows the difference between defending a pilot and defending the indefensible. The safety net he thought was beneath him? It wasn't there. It had never been there. Not for this. Marcus lowered the phone. His hand was shaking. The cockpit felt smaller now. The walls closer. He was alone. And for the first time, he realized that no one, not dispatch, not the union, not the company, was going to save him from what he'd done. Calm and isolated if you know what it feels like when the people you thought had your back suddenly don't. Because Marcus just learned that institutions protect themselves, not their members. And now? Now his reputation is about to go public. Not because someone leaked it. Because he's standing on a tarmac where 50 people can see him. And in aviation, word travels faster than a jet at Mach 0.9. Stay with this. While Marcus was losing his union support, a stranger was destroying his reputation. And she wasn't even trying to drive. Patricia Wynn sat in seat 2A, laptop open, coffee cooling in the cup holder. She wasn't angry. Wasn't on a crusade. She was just doing what HR executives do when they witness workplace misconduct. She documented it. And then she posted. LinkedIn, 6:52 a.m. Dr. Patricia Wynn. VP, Human Resources, Employment Law Specialist, 15 years in organizational leadership. Delayed on tarmac 45+ minutes because pilot refused to fly with fully qualified crew member. In my 15 years in HR, I've never witnessed such blatant professional misconduct in a safety-critical industry. Aviation industry, do better. Tags, #aviation, #HR professional, #discrimination, #leadership. No names. No company details. No specifics. Just implication. And in the world of professional LinkedIn, implication is gasoline. The comments started within minutes. Which airline? Was this regional or commercial? Name and shame. This is why we need better accountability in aviation. I work in HR too, this would be an immediate termination at my company. Then someone noticed the location tag. Wait, you're posting from regional airport. I can see the tarmac from my office. There's an Archer aviation jet sitting there right now. Anyone know if that's them? The aviation community is small. Pilots talk. Ground crews talk. Dispatchers talk. And when something messy happens, word spreads faster than a tailwind at 40,000 feet. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text message. From Ryan Cole. Fellow captain. Guy he'd flown with a dozen times. Friend. Dude, is that you at regional? What the hell happened? Marcus stared at the screen. How did Ryan know? Before he could type a response, another text came in. Different number. Laura Chen. First officer he'd mentored 2 years ago. Marcus, there's a LinkedIn post blowing up. People are saying it's you. Call me. Then another. Just heard from dispatch. They're saying you refused to fly with Simone Archer. Tell me that's not true. Simone Archer. Archer Aviation. Marcus's stomach dropped. The pieces slammed together all at once. Archer. Simone Archer. The owner. The first officer sitting 15 feet away wasn't just a pilot. She was his boss. His phone kept buzzing. Text after text. Pilots he knew. People he'd worked with. Colleagues. Acquaintances. Not one of them was offering support. They were asking for confirmation. They were distancing themselves. Because in aviation, your reputation is everything. And Marcus's was disintegrating in real time. He opened LinkedIn. Found Dr. Wynn's post. 487 reactions. 142 comments. And it had only been posted 8 minutes ago. He scrolled through the comments. I flew with someone like this once. Reported him. He's not flying anymore. This is exactly why diversity in aviation matters. Too many old school pilots think the cockpit belongs to them. If this is who I think it is, he's done. Archer Aviation doesn't tolerate this. Update, confirmed it's Archer Aviation. Jets still on the tarmac. Pilot being escorted off now. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Pilot being escorted off now. How did they know that? He looked out the window. Across the tarmac, near the FBO office, he saw them. Ground crew. 3 of them. Watching. One had his phone out. Taking a picture. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a screenshot. Someone had forwarded him Dr. Wynn's LinkedIn post. With a message attached, "This you?" The sender was his daughter. Jenna. Marcus felt his chest tighten. She'd seen it. His 20-year-old daughter, studying aviation management, scrolling LinkedIn for industry news, had just seen a post about her father refusing to fly with a qualified black woman. And Jenna was black. He tried to type a response. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could he say? It's not what it looks like? There's more to the story? I was protecting safety? None of it sounded true. Another text came in. Different number. Unknown. You're trending on Pilot Network forums. Might want to check it. Marcus opened his browser. Typed in the forum URL. Thread title, Captain Meltdown at Regional, refused to fly with owner. Posted 4 minutes ago. 237 replies. He scrolled. This is Marcus Webb, right? Flies for Archer? Yep. Just confirmed with a buddy at Regional. He refused to fly with Simone Archer. The actual owner. Wait, the owner? He didn't know? Apparently not. She flies the line incognito to check on crew culture. Guess he failed the test. Career suicide. No one's hiring him after this. Good. We don't need dinosaurs like him in cockpits. The truth was spreading faster than he could control it. Pilots he'd known for years were texting him. Not to support him. To distance themselves. Because they knew what he was just learning. In aviation, your reputation is the only currency that matters. And Marcus's was worthless now. His phone rang. Angela. His wife. He stared at the screen. She'd seen it too. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because what was he going to say? That he'd thrown away 28 years because he made assumptions about a woman who turned out to own the company? That he'd humiliated himself, his family, and his profession in front of witnesses with recording devices? That his daughter, their daughter, was probably reading those forum posts right now, watching strangers call her father a disgrace? The phone stopped ringing. A voicemail notification appeared. Marcus didn't listen to it. He just stood there, holding his phone, watching his life fall apart in real time. 140 characters at a time. Share this with someone who thinks social media doesn't have real consequences. Because Marcus is about to learn that digital reputation damage is permanent. And it's just getting started. Because in 5 minutes, someone's going to walk off that aircraft. And when they do, Marcus is going to hear 2 words that will change his life forever. You're fired. The moment Marcus had been dreading arrived in a black company SUV. No drama. No confrontation. Just paperwork. And paperwork, in aviation, is how careers end. The SUV pulled up to the aircraft. Doors opened. A woman in a business suit stepped out, mid-40s, leather briefcase, the kind of professional presence that meant legal department. She walked directly to Simone. No greeting. Just business. "Captain Archer, I have the documentation you requested." She opened the briefcase. Pulled out a leather folder. Incident report template. Witness statements. And the termination paperwork. She handed the folder to Simone. Marcus's brain processed it in slow motion. Captain Archer. Archer Aviation. S. Archer. His voice came out barely audible. "Wait. Captain?" Simone turned to face him. No triumph in her expression. No satisfaction. Just exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from being underestimated for the 1000th time and still having to explain why it's a problem. "I'm the owner, Captain Webb." She said it calmly. Matter of fact. "Simone Archer. Archer Aviation. This is my company. This is my aircraft. And you've spent the last 30 minutes giving me a very thorough demonstration of exactly who you are." Marcus felt the ground tilt beneath him. The owner. She was the owner. Simone continued, her voice steady, professional, like she was delivering a safety briefing. "I fly our routes monthly. Quality control. I use my first name only on crew schedules because I want honest interactions with my pilots. I want to see how they treat people when they think no one's watching." She paused. Looked him directly in the eyes. "You showed me exactly how you treat people." Marcus's knees almost buckled. He reached out, grabbed the aircraft fuselage for support. The cold metal against his palm was the only thing keeping him upright. His voice cracked. I didn't know." Simone's expression didn't soften. But her voice stayed firm. Not cruel. Just clear. "That's exactly the problem. You didn't know. You didn't ask. You saw a young black woman and made every assumption except the one that mattered, that she might be qualified." She gestured to the folder in her hands. "You questioned my credentials without reviewing them. You made racist comments about slang and urban vernacular. You refused to fly based on appearance. And then you asked me to falsify federal records." Each sentence landed like a stone. 9 separate choices, Captain Webb. Each one documented. Each one witnessed. Marcus opened his mouth. No words came out. What could he say? That he was sorry? That he didn't mean it? That if he'd known who she was, he would have acted differently? That was the whole problem. Simone took a slow breath. "I built this company because I was tired of being underestimated. Tired of walking into cockpits and seeing doubt in people's eyes before I touched a single switch. I wanted to create a place where competence was the only credential that mattered." Her voice dropped slightly. "And you just proved exactly why that's necessary." This wasn't a gotcha moment. There was no satisfaction in Simone's voice. Just disappointment. Deep, quiet disappointment. Because she'd built this company to be different. To be better. And Marcus had proven that the problem she'd spent years trying to fix was still alive and well. Not in policies. Not in training manuals. In people. The attorney stepped forward, pulled a document from the folder. "Captain Webb, this is your termination notice. Effective immediately. You'll need to surrender your company ID, security badge, and any company property." She held out the paper. Marcus stared at it. His hands were shaking too much to take it. Simone's voice, quieter now. "I'm not doing this to punish you, Captain Webb. I'm doing this because I can't trust your judgment. Not with my aircraft. Not with my passengers. Not with my crew." She paused. "You made decisions based on assumptions. In aviation, assumptions kill people. Marcus finally took the termination notice. The paper felt heavier than it should. Hit subscribe if you've ever had to explain something to someone who should have known better. Because what happens next isn't revenge, it's accountability. And there's a difference. Marcus is about to be escorted off the aircraft he thought he commanded. And the walk down those stairs? It's going to be the longest walk of his life. Simone pulled out 2 documents. One was expected. The other would haunt Marcus for years. She held up the first page. Captain Webb, I'm terminating your contract with Archer Aviation. Effective immediately. Marcus opened his mouth to speak. Simone raised her hand. Not for the initial comment. People make mistakes. Not even for the refusal to fly. That's your right as pilot in command if you genuinely believe there's a safety issue. She paused. Let that sit for a moment. I'm terminating you for attempting to falsify company records. You asked me to delete a logged incident. In front of a witness. That's not bias. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a federal violation. Dr. Wynne stepped forward from the cabin doorway. Her voice was calm. Professional. I have the audio recording timestamped at 6:51 a.m. Would you like me to play it? She held up her phone. Marcus could see the voice memo app on the screen. The waveform. The timestamp. Evidence. His voice came out desperate now. Please. I have a family. A mortgage. My daughter's in college. I was wrong. I'll apologize publicly. I'll do whatever. Simone's expression didn't change. Not unkind. But immovable. I believe you're sorry. I believe you didn't understand who I was. She took a breath. But here's what troubles me, Captain Webb, you're apologizing to me because I'm the owner. Would you be apologizing if I were just a first officer? Or would you still think you were right? Silence. Marcus couldn't answer that. Because they both knew the truth. Simone pulled out the second document. Handed him a copy. This is the FAA incident report. It will be filed this afternoon. Standard procedure for safety culture violations. You'll have an opportunity to respond. But the investigation will happen. Marcus stared at the 2 pieces of paper in his hands. Termination notice in his right hand. FAA incident report in his left. One ended his job. The other could end his career. And both were consequences of 9 choices he'd made in 30 minutes. The attorney stepped forward. Captain Webb, I'll need your company ID badge, security credentials, and aircraft access card. Marcus reached into his pocket. Pulled out his badge. The one he'd worn for 3 years. The one that said Captain, Archer Aviation. He handed it over. It felt like handing over his identity. Simone's voice, quieter now. You'll be escorted off the premises. Your personal belongings will be shipped to the address on file. You're no longer authorized on company property. She nodded to the ground crew supervisor standing near the stairs. Toby will walk you out. Marcus looked at the young ground crew member he'd ignored that morning. The kid he'd barely acknowledged when signing the fuel sheet. Now that kid was escorting him off the tarmac. The reversal was complete. Comment accountability if you understand the difference between being sorry you did it and being sorry you got caught. Because Marcus is about to learn that apologies don't erase evidence. And the walk he's about to take, past the ground crew, past the other pilots, past everyone who's been watching this unfold, that walk is going to define him. Not his 28 years of flying. This walk. Stay with this. Watch how fast a life unravels when every choice hits the next one. Marcus sat in his car in the parking lot. Engine off. Keys in his lap. Hands shaking. He couldn't drive yet. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what had just happened. He pulled out his phone. Stared at Angela's contact photo. Their wedding day. Her smile. He hit call. She answered on the first ring. Hey, how's the flight? Her voice was light. Normal. She had no idea. Marcus's throat tightened. I got fired. Silence. Then her voice came back, sharp, disbelieving. What? What happened? I can't explain right now. Marcus, the mortgage, I know. He hadn't meant to yell. The silence that followed was worse than the yelling. Angela's voice came back quieter. Colder. We'll talk when you get home. She hung up. Contrast, while Marcus sat in his car, hands trembling, staring at a dead phone, Simone was already in the air. Flying the route. With a new first officer. On time. The passengers had no idea anything had happened. The flight departed at 6:58 a.m. 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Hour 6, the industry knows. Marcus's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Then again. He finally looked at the screen. 47 unread messages. He opened the pilot group chat. 400 members. Colleagues. Friends. People he'd flown with for years. The messages were flying. Did anyone hear about Marcus Webb? Yeah. Refused to fly with the owner. Didn't even know it was her. Wait, who's the owner? Simone Archer. She's legit. 4,000 hours. Built the company from scratch. Webb's done. No one's hiring him after this. What was he thinking? He wasn't. That's the problem. Marcus scrolled through the messages. Not one person defended him. Not one person asked for his side of the story. They'd already decided. He closed the app. Couldn't read any more. Simone posted on LinkedIn. Professional. No names. Just reflection. Today reminded me why transparent company culture matters. When leaders fly the line, they see the truth. Grateful for the team that holds the standard. Within an hour, 2,400 reactions. 340 comments. All supportive. This is leadership. We need more CEOs like you in aviation. Respect for holding people accountable. The industry wasn't just hearing about Marcus's failure. They were celebrating Simone's leadership. Hour 12, the FAA responds. Marcus's email pinged. He opened it with shaking hands. From FAA Flight Standards District Office. Subject, Incident Report Number 2024 RTG 447. Captain Webb. An investigation has been opened regarding alleged safety culture violations and attempted records falsification. You are required to respond within 10 business days. Failure to respond may result in certificate action. Investigator, J. Morrison. Case number, 2024 RTG 447. Certificate action. That meant his pilot's license was under review. Even if another company wanted to hire him, and none of them would, they couldn't until the FAA investigation closed. He was grounded. Not officially, but practically. Contrast. Simone sat in her office with her corporate attorney. I don't want this to just be a firing, she said. I want company-wide training on professional conduct. I want this to be a learning moment. The attorney nodded. I'll draft the policy updates. Simone wasn't out for revenge. She was building systems to prevent the next Marcus. Hour 24, the digital footprint. Marcus Googled his own name. He'd never done that before. Never needed to. Now he needed to know what people were seeing. First result, Dr. Wynn's LinkedIn post, still no name, but the comments had filled in the blanks. Second result, aviation forum thread, captain refuses to fly with owner, identity crisis ensues, 840 replies. Third result, His own LinkedIn profile. Last updated 3 years ago. Smiling headshot. Captain, Archer Aviation. Past tense now. He clicked edit. Changed his status to former captain. Stared at the words. 28 years. Reduced to former. He opened the job search tab. Filtered, commercial pilot. Minimum 5,000 hours. 12 positions. He started applying. Contrast. Archer Aviation received 3 new client inquiries that day. One email specifically mentioned. We're interested in working with a company that demonstrates commitment to diversity and professional standards. Your handling of the recent incident speaks volumes. Marcus's termination was becoming a marketing asset. Hour 36, the job interview. Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on the first ring. Captain Webb? This is Tom Reichert with Skyline Cargo. We received your application. Got a few minutes for a phone screen? Marcus sat up straight. Yes. Absolutely. Great. So I see a gap in your recent employment. Can you explain that? Marcus had rehearsed this. Contract ended. Mutual decision to part ways. A pause. Then Tom's voice came back, careful now. And this had nothing to do with an incident at Regional Airport last week? Marcus's stomach dropped. There was a misunderstanding. Captain Webb, we're a small industry. People talk. We've heard about what happened. And while I appreciate you applying, we're going to pass. Click. Marcus sat there. Phone still pressed to his ear. The dial tone buzzing. Contrast. Simone interviewed 3 new pilot candidates that afternoon. All women. All highly qualified. One of them, Captain Maria Reyes, former Air Force, 6,000 hours, said something that stuck with Simone. I want to work somewhere where my competence matters more than assumptions. Simone hired her on the spot. Hour 48, the financial reality. Marcus's phone buzzed. Bank notification. Your mortgage payment of $2,847 has been returned due to insufficient funds. A late fee of $125 has been applied. Please contact us immediately to avoid further action. Then another notification. Email from Angela. Subject, bills. Body, Marcus, we need to talk. Tonight. Attached, 3 overdue notices. Marcus opened his bank account. Balance, $847.32. The mortgage was due. The car payment was due. Jenna's tuition payment was in 2 weeks. And he had no income. No prospects. No plan. Contrast. Archer Aviation's quarterly earnings report went out to investors that same day. Revenue, up 12%. Client retention, 94%. Fleet expansion, 2 new aircraft acquired. The company Marcus thought was some rinky-dink operation? It was thriving. And Simone was being profiled in Aviation Week as one of the industry's rising leaders. 2 days. That's how long it took for Marcus's career, reputation, and financial security to collapse. Not because of one choice. Because of 9 choices. Each one small. Each one justified in the moment. Each one irreversible. If this hasn't made you rethink every assumption you've ever made about a colleague, share this now. Tag someone in aviation, in leadership, in any industry where ego meets authority. Because what happens next shows that professional consequences are just the beginning. Family consequences? Those cut deeper. And Marcus is about to learn that losing your job is one thing. Losing your daughter's respect? That's something you never get back. Marcus had faced the FAA, his employer, his union, and the aviation community. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the phone call from his daughter. Jenna was 20 years old. College junior. Aviation management major. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus when she'd chosen that path. His daughter. Following in his footsteps. She was on an aviation forum that evening. Class project. Research on industry culture. And she saw the thread. Title: Pilot refused to fly with black female captain, turned out she owned the airline. The main post was vague. No names. But the comments filled in the blanks. Happened at regional airport. Heard it was a 50-something white guy. Archer Aviation, right? Yeah. Pilot's last name started with W. Jenna stared at the screen. Her hands went cold. She knew. The call. Marcus was in his home office. Avoiding Angela. Avoiding reality. Staring at his laptop. Job applications open. None of them submitted. His phone rang. Jenna appeared on the screen. He answered immediately. Forced cheerfulness into his voice. Hey, honey. How's school? Her voice came back. Not angry. Worse. Disappointed. Dad. I need you to tell me something. And I need you to be honest. Marcus's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Did you refuse to fly with a black woman pilot last week? Silence. Marcus's throat closed. It's complicated, Jenna. That's not an answer. There were safety concerns. She cut him off. Dad. I'm in aviation. I know what safety concerns means. And I read the details. She was type-rated. She had more hours on that aircraft than you did. Her voice sharpened. So I'm going to ask again, did you refuse to fly with her because she was black? No. It wasn't about race. I didn't think she had the experience. You didn't ask about her experience, Dad. You assumed. Jenna, you don't understand the pressure in that cockpit. Her voice cracked. Dad. I'm black. Mom is black. When you look at me, do you see someone unqualified? Marcus couldn't answer. I'm studying aviation because of you. You taught me to love flying. You taught me that I could do anything. She paused. Her voice broke. And now I'm reading about how my father, my hero, assumed a woman who looks like me didn't belong in a cockpit. And here is the question that destroyed him. If it was me sitting in that right seat, would you have treated me the same way? Marcus's desperation bled through. Of course not. You're my daughter. Jenna's response came back quiet. Devastated. She's someone's daughter too, Dad. Silence. I need some time. I can't talk to you right now. Jenna, please. I've spent my whole life defending you when people questioned why a black girl wanted to be a pilot. I told them my dad taught me I could do anything. Her voice hardened. And now I find out that you don't actually believe that. You just believe it about me. Click. Marcus sat in his office. Not crying. Just sitting. Phone still in his hand. Staring at Jenna's contact photo. 16 years old. In the cockpit of a Cessna. The day she soloed. Wearing the pilot wings he'd given her. The smile on her face. Pure joy. That girl believed in him. That girl thought he was a hero. Angela appeared in the doorway. What did she say? Marcus couldn't speak. Angela's face fell. She knows. Marcus's voice finally came out. Broken. She asked if I would have treated her the same way. Angela stood there. Silent. Then she asked the question Marcus couldn't face. Would you have? Marcus had lost his job. His reputation. His career. But this was different. The FAA could investigate him. The aviation community could judge him. But his daughter? She'd believed in him. And he'd shattered that belief by proving he only respected people who looked like him when they were related to him. Angela's voice came quiet from the doorway. Jenna's senior thesis is on breaking barriers for women of color in aviation. She paused. She was going to interview you for it. She was going to call you a role model. Past tense. Comment perspective. If you've ever realized that the people you hurt weren't strangers, they were reflections of people you love. Because Marcus just learned that prejudice doesn't stop at your family. It just blinds you to seeing it in yourself. And if you know a parent, a mentor, a leader who needs to understand the long-term cost of their biases, share this story. Because the next part shows what happens when there's no going back. Marcus is about to do the one thing desperate people do. He's going to beg. And begging? That's when you learn who you really are. After losing his daughter's respect, Marcus tried one last time to save something. Anything. He wrote an email. And in that email, you can see a man who finally understood, but understood too late. 2:37 a.m. Marcus hadn't slept in 3 days. He sat at his laptop in the dark. Angela asleep upstairs. The house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the foundation settling. He typed. Deleted. Typed again. Subject, a sincere apology and request. Dear Ms. Archer. I know I have no right to ask for your time. But I'm asking anyway. I was wrong. Not just about you, about everything. I made assumptions based on what I saw instead of who you were. I let my ego convince me that years of experience mattered more than actual competence. I was arrogant. I was biased. And worst of all, I was so convinced I was right that I couldn't see how wrong I was. You were qualified. You were professional. And I treated you like you didn't belong. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back those words. But I'm asking, begging, for a second chance. Not for my reputation. That's gone. Not even for my career. I understand I burned that bridge. I'm asking because my daughter is studying aviation. She's 20. She's black. And she wants to be a commercial pilot. And when she found out what I did, she stopped talking to me. She asked me if I would have treated her the same way. I told her no. But I'm not sure that's true anymore. And that terrifies me. I need to prove to her, and to myself, that I can change. That I can be better. If there's any way I can make this right, please tell me. I'll undergo bias training. I'll speak publicly about what I did wrong. I'll work for free if it means learning how to see people the way you deserve to be seen. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to become someone my daughter can respect again. Respectfully. Marcus Webb. He stared at it for 10 minutes. Then hit send. 2:37 a.m. The wait. 6 a.m., Marcus checks email. Nothing. 9 a.m., refreshes inbox. Nothing. Noon, opens email app on his phone. Still nothing. He tells himself she's busy. She runs a company. She has flights to manage. Pilots to oversee. But part of him knows the truth. She doesn't owe him a response. The response? 3:42 p.m. 13 hours after he sent it. The notification appeared on his phone. Simone Archer, a sincere apology and request. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. Subject, a sincere apology and request. Mr. Webb. I received your email. I appreciate the honesty in it. However, I need you to understand something. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about safety culture. And safety culture can't be built on second chances for people who've proven they make decisions based on bias instead of facts. You made 9 separate choices that morning. 1. You mocked me in front of ground crew. 2. You dismissed my pre-flight findings. 3. You questioned my competence without reviewing credentials. 4. You made racist comments about slang and urban vernacular. 5. You refused to fly based on appearance, not qualifications. 6. You asked me to falsify records. 7. You lied to a passenger about safety concerns. 8. You called your union to fight a discrimination complaint. 9. You only apologized when you realized I had power over you. 9 choices. Each one showed me who you are under pressure. I can't put you in a cockpit where someone's life depends on your judgment. Not because I don't believe you're sorry, but because I don't trust that you won't make those same choices again when no one's watching. Your daughter's situation breaks my heart. Truly. But I am not responsible for repairing your relationship with her. You are. And that repair doesn't start with me giving you back a job. It starts with you becoming the person who wouldn't have needed to write this email in the first place. I hope you find that person. For your daughter's sake. But you won't find him in my cockpit. Simone Archer, CEO, Archer Aviation. Marcus read the response. Not anger. Not denial. Just acceptance. He read it 3 times. Each time, the weight of it settled deeper. 9 choices. She'd numbered them. Documented them. Each one a nail in the coffin he'd built himself. He hit forward. Typed Jenna's email address. Added 1 line. She's right. About all of it. Sent. Jenna's response. 30 minutes later. I'm glad you see it now, Dad. But seeing it isn't the same as changing it. Call me when you've actually done the work. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just a door left slightly open. If he did the work. Simone's email wasn't cruel. It was clear. She didn't know Marcus redemption. She owed her future pilots like Jenna, a company where competence mattered more than assumptions. And Marcus's apology, as genuine as it might have been, didn't change the fact that he'd only apologized after consequences hit. That's not growth. That's damage control. Simone's last line haunted him. You won't find him in my cockpit. Because she was right. The person Marcus needed to become couldn't be built on getting his old life back. It had to be built on accepting that his old life was gone because of who he was. Tag someone who's ever had to set a boundary with someone who wanted forgiveness without doing the work. Because Simone just showed that compassion doesn't mean saying yes to people who aren't ready to change. And if you've stayed this long, you need to see what happens next. Because the final part? It's not about Marcus's career, it's about what he becomes after everything falls. 6 months later. When the dust has settled. When the consequences are permanent. And when Marcus has to face the life he built with his own choices. Stay with this. This is where consequences live. Not in the dramatic moment of losing everything. But in the ordinary moments after, when you realize everything you lost isn't coming back. Marcus arrived at the aviation supply store. Same time he used to arrive at the airport. Same parking lot view, aircraft taking off in the distance. Different uniform. Polo shirt with the company logo. Not pilot stripes. Position, inventory manager. Salary, $42,000 a year. Down from $127,000 as a pilot. His job? Receiving shipments. Aviation parts. Headsets. Charts. Fuel additives. Things he used to order. Now he stocks them. The customers are pilots. They come in for supplies. Sometimes Marcus recognizes them. Sometimes they recognize him. The ones who know pretend they don't. The moment that repeats: a young pilot walked in, couldn't be older than 28. Do you have the Bose A20 headsets in stock? Marcus checked the computer. Yeah, we have 3. Want me to grab them? That'd be great. About to start a new charter gig. First captain position. Marcus forced a smile. Congratulations. That's a big step. He walked to the back. Got the headset. Rang him up. The pilot left. Marcus stood at the register. Holding a headset he'd never use again. Comment recognition if you've ever had to serve the life you used to live. Financial reality: the mortgage was 2 months behind. Bank threatening foreclosure. Jenna's tuition? She took out student loans. Marcus couldn't co-sign. His credit was destroyed. They'd sold his car. Now he shared Angela's 2011 Honda. Their savings? Emptied. Restitution to Simone for the incident report costs. Angela worked her accounting job 8 to 5. Then drove for Uber 6 to 11 p.m. They barely spoke anymore. Not from anger. From exhaustion. And shame. Marcus still lived in the same neighborhood. Same grocery store. Same gym. Same coffee shop. But people knew. The story had made local aviation news. His name was eventually attached. Former pilot terminated for discrimination at Archer Aviation. Parents at Jenna's old high school recognized him. They didn't say anything. They just knew. The supply store had a window facing the regional airport taxiway. Every 20 minutes, an aircraft taxied past. And every time, Marcus stopped whatever he was doing and watched. His coworker, 20-year-old college kid, part-time, noticed. "You really love planes, huh?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah. I used to fly." "No way. That's so cool. Why'd you stop?" Marcus didn't look at him. "Medical reasons." It was easier than the truth. Share this if you've ever had to lie about why you lost something you loved. Archer Aviation had grown. Fleet, 9 aircraft. Up from 4. Routes, 6 cities. Was 3. Staff, 47 employees. Was 28. Revenue, up 34% year over year. Dr. Wynn, the HR executive from that morning, became a client. Her company now booked 40% of their corporate travel through Archer Aviation. She told Simone, "I only work with companies that have integrity." Simone still flew the line. Once a month. Different name on the manifest each time. S. Reed. S. Mitchell. S. Torres. She still wanted to see who her pilots really were. She'd hired 3 new pilots in the last 6 months. A 29-year-old black woman. A Latina former military pilot. A white man in his 50s with excellent CRM scores and impeccable references. She didn't hire based on diversity. She hired based on competence and character. It just turned out that when you hire based on those things, your crew starts to look like the world. But there was a cost. Death threats after the story went public. Diversity hire bitch. You destroyed a good man's life. Hope your plane crashes. She didn't read them anymore. Her attorney handled it. But she still flinched when she saw her company mentioned online. During new pilot orientation, she always said the same thing. "I built this company because I was tired of being underestimated. But I don't run it for revenge. I run it for the next person who walks into a cockpit and gets judged before they touch a switch. I want them to know there's a place where competence is the only credential that matters." Subscribe if you believe competence should be the only credential that matters. Jenna, present-day reality. Senior year. Flight school. Her relationship with Marcus? Still fractured. They texted. Short messages. Awkward. Marcus, how's flight training? Jenna, good. Passed my instrument check ride. Marcus, that's great, honey. Proud of you. Jenna, thanks. No phone calls. She wasn't ready. Her thesis, Breaking Barriers, Women of Color in Commercial Aviation, She interviewed 15 pilots. Not one of them was her father. In the acknowledgments, she wrote, "To my mother, who taught me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about who you become after you hit the ground." Marcus wasn't mentioned. What Marcus didn't know: Jenna had reached out to Simone. Asked for an informational interview for her thesis. They met for coffee. Jenna asked, "Do you think he can change? My dad?" Simone paused. "I think people can change. I don't think they can erase what they did. Your dad made choices that hurt people. He hurt me. He hurt his career. And he hurt you. Change doesn't undo that. It just means he doesn't make those choices again." Jenna asked, "Do you forgive him?" Simone's answer was quiet. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give or withhold. I'm not carrying anger toward him. But I'm also not responsible for his healing. That's his work." Late afternoon. 6 months after the incident. Marcus sat on a bench in the terminal viewing area. His lunch break. He still came here. Watched planes take off. It was pathetic, he knew. But he couldn't stop. And then he saw her. Simone. Walking across the tarmac in full uniform. Captain's stripes visible. Briefing her crew for an evening departure. They saw each other through the terminal glass. Simone didn't stop. Didn't acknowledge him. Just kept walking toward her aircraft. Marcus watched. No anger on his face. No resentment. Just loss. He watched her do the pre-flight walk-around. Watched her board the aircraft. Watched her start the engines. He knew exactly what she was doing. Every switch. Every procedure. And he'd never do it again. The plane taxied. Archer Aviation Gulfstream. Registration, N347SA. Destination, Denver. Marcus watched it line up on the runway. Watched the engine spool up. Watched it rotate. Watched it climb. And disappear into the clouds. His phone buzzed. "Angela, when are you coming home?" Marcus, "Soon." But he didn't move. He just sat. Watching the empty sky. 6 months. Marcus lost his job in 30 minutes. But the real consequence? It's this. Every single day. Watching the life he destroyed taxi past him. Close enough to see. Too far to ever touch again. If this story stayed with you, you understand something most people don't. Consequences aren't the dramatic moment. They're the quiet moments after. Every day. Forever. Share this with someone in leadership, in aviation, in any industry where a single choice can end a career. Because the lesson isn't about what happened to Marcus. It's about the 9 choices he made before everything fell. And if you want more stories that show the real cost of decisions people make, subscribe. Because this is what accountability looks like. Not revenge. Just reality. Marcus didn't lose his career in one moment. He lost it in 9 choices. Simone didn't win by revealing who she was. She won by never compromising who she was. The final image isn't Marcus. It isn't Simone. It's an empty cockpit. 2 seats. One for the person with experience. One for the person with competence. Sometimes they're the same person. Sometimes they're not. And the person who can't tell the difference? They don't belong in either seat. Consequences don't need drama. They just need time. If this story changed how you see assumptions, choices, and consequences, leave a comment. Tell me which moment hit you hardest. Share this with someone in leadership. Someone in aviation. Someone who needs to understand that respect isn't about years, it's about how you see people when you think no one's watching. And subscribe if you want more stories that show what happens when choices meet reality. Because the world needs fewer Marcus Webbs and more Simone Archers. Not because of their titles, but because of their choices. Thanks for staying with this story.